tradition, conservation, family, the outdoors. It matters to you. It matters to us. This is Hunting Matters, presented by Houston Safari Club Foundation. Here's Joe Betar.
Good morning. Welcome to Hunting Matters on KPRC 950 AM. I'm your host, Joe Betar.
I am Ramon Robles.
And we are back at it again here with Hunting Matters every week. And, man, we are getting close to Christmas.
Countdown's on, man. The pressure is on. My wife controls the finances, so it's not as easy to surprise her with gifts anymore as it used to be. So I got to get creative with what I come up with, and I'm struggling this year.
So what are you going to get her this year?
Nothing.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bases covered.
Yeah, we're going to try that one this year.
Maybe a big wad of cash.
That could work, right?
That could work. And then she never fit. Well, she would see your withdrawal receipts, though. So.
See, that's the trick. That's the problem.
Oh, man. The dilemmas of gift giving.
Our finances are in great shape for the first time since she started doing the books.
Oh, there you go.
But the problem is there's no more spontaneity.
Yeah.
Baby, could we afford $11,000? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I got you a Christmas gift. Yeah. So that's how it was, for years and years.
Yeah. So have you guys been out shopping in the mall, or do you mostly online shop?
Online shop now, just because we have the Bambinos and it's hard to get them out and all that. So it's all online stuff. We got nothing against the malls.
Yeah, I don't either. We've always had this running gag between my wife and I that we do a lot of our stuff online in advance because we have a big family and our kids are kind of spread all over the U.S. and stuff. So we typically will order and ship to them, things like that, if they can't come home. Mm-hmm. This year it's going to be one of those years where we can't get everybody home, of course, for obvious reasons. But we like to go typically in a normal year is we get all of our shopping done ahead of time, like by early December. And then we just like to go to the mall, grab a nice coffee, grab a latte or something, and sit in there and watch everybody panic.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. People watching. It's like a sport.
It is. And you see the panic and the look and the ferocity in their faces, and it's like, oh, man, I got to get this gift. What do I get? So and so on. So we go and we have a little lunch or have some coffee and watch everybody run around and kind of go, glad that's not us.
That won't be happening as much this year, I guess.
No, I don't think so. I couldn't tell you the last time I was in a mall.
That's because you can't see people's faces anymore, so you can't see that.
Yep.
Those reactions.
That's true. All you can see is the eyes with the mask on. So anyway, well, just want to give everybody a reminder. We're still planning to have our annual convention next February, the 26th through the 28th at the George R. Brown Convention Center. Tickets are on sale now at wehuntwegive.org. So still planning that unless the tides turn on us for some reason.
Positive thinking.
Positive thinking.
We got a vaccine now.
Yep.
People are lining up to get their shot.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to be fine.
Yep. And, people are going outdoors. We've talked about it on this program. People are buying hunting and fishing licenses at record levels, and they're out there hunting and fishing and, traveling. So one of my favorite places in the world to travel is the hill country. Mm-hmm. And so our guest today is Dan Garrison. Dan is the founder of the Garrison Brothers Distillery. Oh. You can see all their wonderful products and a variety of different things at garrisonbrothers.com. Good morning, Dan. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. It's not fair to the rest of the world, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on your show.
I'm a big fan of your product. I didn't realize that's who we were talking to today. I'm just kidding, but I'm just hamming it up for radio. But I'm very excited about having you on, so I hope I don't disappoint you.
Well, I hope I don't disappoint y'all. And I did pour myself a cocktail, regardless of the time of the day.
Yeah, good. No, we're too deep into our whiskey and coffee, so this is fine.
Dan, we would be disappointed if your response would have been anything otherwise.
I've got a big old 32-ounce Yeti sitting on my desk. I'm actually calling you from a hotel in Naples, Florida. We are down here this week, and we are sponsors of the Greg Norman QBE Shark Shootout Golf Tournament, which happens at the Ritz-Carlton, which I couldn't afford to stay at, so I was staying at a Days Inn about 2 blocks away from it.
There you go.
What's cool about your job, and we'll dig deeper into it, is this is your job. I mean, you're at work.
Oh, my God. I have the greatest job in the world, and I thank God for it every single day because what I do for a living is I get out and I go to really fancy steakhouses like Shula's last night here in Florida, and I meet new friends at bourbon pairing dinners with the chefs, and I meet the kitchen staff at all of these places, and I get to drink good bourbon with them every single day of the week, and it's a pretty amazing gig, and thank you, Lord, for giving me this opportunity.
Amen.
That's cool. So Dan, before we get into your current line of work, what did you do before you were a distiller?
All right, you want the long story or the short one?
Give us the short one, and we'll jump on the hot points.
Well, keep in mind that I am from Texas,
right.
And so I never let the truth get in the way of a great story.
Perfect.
In 1989, I graduated from the University of Texas with a communications degree from the Moody College of Communications. And I moved to New York City the very next day because I had a job with an advertising agency up there called Saatchi & Saatchi. I sold Tyson Foods chicken for about 4 years. If you've ever seen the trucks rolling down the highway with this Tyson family, that was my account, and I managed that account for 4 years. And then I got this very strange phone call about 1993 from this woman named Nancy from Texas, and she said, "Hey, I was at the School of Communications the same time you were, and a sorority sister of mine, I was a Kappa Kappa Gamma, asked me to look you up next time I'm in New York because I do a lot of travel there." And I'm thinking to myself, okay, let's evaluate the pros and cons of this situation. First of all, she's from Texas. She's probably smoking hot. Second of all, she was a Kappa Kappa Gamma, so she's probably smoking hot and rich. And third of all, she has the cojones to call me up and ask me out on a blind date, having no idea just what kind of behavioral or emotional issues I was going through at the age of 23 years old. And I went, you know what, Nancy, let's go have a drink. She flew into New York. I was at a bar on the Upper East Side drinking with some friends, and I kept watching the window to see when the taxi cab pulled up. You all know what a taxi cab is. It's the yellow cars they had before Uber.
Right.
Yep.
So the taxi pulls up, and I see this blonde getting out, and then everything started happening in slow motion. I threw $100 down on the bar to cover the drinks for my friends, and I backed slowly out the door. I didn't want them to notice that I was leaving, or that I didn't want them to see what was getting out of that taxi cab outside. Fell madly in love that night. Took her down to Little Italy. We had a couple of bottles of wine, and I was head over heels. And 4 months later, moved back to Texas, moved into her house in Austin at her invitation, and got married, had a couple of kids, worked for GSD&M advertising for a while. In 1995, I did a complete detour from my advertising career and went to work for a software company because Austin was a hotbed of technology investments back in those days, the mid-'90s. You know, that was the days that Yahoo was developed and Broadcast.com from Mark Cuban, and all that was happening, and people were making a ton of money, and I decided I wanted to get in that game so I could afford to buy my wife shoes. And I did. Worked for a company called Commerce One for about 5 years, and the company was sold to a big California company. Extra Prize was the company I went to work for, and they were sold to a big California company called Commerce One, which was trading on NASDAQ for about $258 a share. And I was promoted to the vice president of marketing position, so I was sitting on 17,000 of those shares.
Oh, okay. Well, hang on one second. You've got my attention now. Well, we got to take a break, so hang on. We're going to pick it up right there. Dan Garrison, founder of Garrison Brothers Distillery. He doesn't know it yet, but we are going to be best friends.
Yep.
We'll be right back with more Hunting Matters on the 950. Hold on.
I want to tell you a story about the house went blue. I come home one Friday, had to tell the landlady I done lost my job. She said, that don't confront me, long as I get my money next Friday. Now next Friday I come, I didn't get the rent, and out the door I went.
Good morning. Welcome back to Hunting Matters on KPRC, 9:50 a.m. We can let that one run for a while, man.
Like 8 minutes.
Yeah, but we got some important stuff to talk about.
Well, Dan told us during the break he'd sing along to the song, so whenever you're ready, Dan.
You know all the words.
Folks, we're here with Dan Garrison. Dan is the founder of Garrison Brothers Distillery. Go to GarrisonBrothers.com to learn all about them. Dan, we were talking a little bit about how you kind of got started before you got in the bourbon business, and let's go ahead and just jump into the heart of the matter here. If you will indulge us a little bit, I started taking an active interest in bourbon and spirits several years back, but that was only enhanced because I got to go out and tour your place there in High, Texas, outside of Fredericksburg. For folks who don't know where High or Fredericksburg is, probably the closest metropolitan area is San Antonio, Texas. And I really learned a lot from you. You were there that day. You gave the tour. If you haven't been, you got to go out and check it out. It's phenomenal. But Dan, if you wouldn't mind indulging some of our beginner listeners, let's dispel some myths and kind of talk about some basics of bourbon. first of all, let's dispel the myth that bourbon can only be made in Kentucky. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. In 1963, John F. Kennedy was drafting the first ever North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. And it was an agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico that we would respect each other's products and each other's industries. And it tried to create trademarks basically on different types of products that came from each country. Mexico obviously makes tequila, and tequila became a distinctive product from Mexico. You cannot make tequila in America, and you never should be allowed to. It's a distinctive product of Mexico. Same thing is true for bourbon. Bourbon is the America spirit. That's what we make here in America is bourbon whiskey, and we're known for it throughout the world. Canada, of course, makes Canadian whiskey, and that became a distinctive product of Canada. That was signed into law by Lyndon Baines Johnson, a very tall Texan, in 1964, and that became law. So, but the Kentucky bourbon distillers were petitioning the president to include them in this, and the president realized, and I think Congress realized, that there was no way to protect bourbon as a distinctive product from Kentucky. It had to be from the USA. So suddenly, you could make bourbon anywhere in the United States, but the Kentucky bourbon distillers decided not to tell anybody.
And why would they?
Yeah.
And why would they? They had a monopoly.
Yeah, and then you kind of started digging in that when you got in this business, and you uncovered the fact that they do not have a monopoly on that. And can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure, exactly. I lost my job when I was 40 years old. My company went bankrupt because of the Enron scandal. And all of the shares that I thought I was going to inherit and they were going to buy my catamaran in the Caribbean disappeared overnight. So I decided I had to find a new career path. And I'm sitting on the couch reading a newspaper with my wife one day, and she says, and I'm reading a story about a guy who's going to make vodka, not Tito, not Di Betty, but another guy named Savvy Vodka. And I turned to my wife, who's a big vodka drinker, and I said, "Why in the hell would somebody make another vodka? Why doesn't somebody make something that tastes good like bourbon?" And she quips back to me, "As much of that stuff as you drink, maybe you should. We'd probably save money."
Look at that.
That was my ticket. The next week, I was on a plane to Kentucky to understand the bourbon industry and to visit all 9 distilleries that were there in Kentucky, making all 35 brands of bourbon back in that day.
What actress is going to play your wife in the movie?
That's nice. Jodie Foster.
Okay. All right. Very good.
So, Dan, I don't know if people generally know this, but having done the tour out there at your place, you talked about one of the stills you have there. So you went out there and you learned from the best in Kentucky. You talked to everybody. You learned all about the process and what they do. But you had an intimate relationship, I believe, if I remember the story correctly, with one particular distillery and kind of have I believe you have one of their stills on your property or a former still?
Yeah. When I was up there, I noticed that Harlan Wheatley, the master distiller at Buffalo Trace Distillery, had installed a brand new experimental still that he was working on. And this thing was crazy beautiful. I mean, it had stainless steel barrels on it. It was absolutely beautiful. The tasting box was fantastic. It was all engraved. And I said, "Well, what happened to your old tasting still?" And he said, "Well, I gave it back to Vendome, Brass and Copper Works. They were the only still maker in North America at the time." And I picked up the phone and I called Vendome and I said, how can I get Elmer T. Lee's original experimental still? Is it for sale? And they said, "Sure, we'll make a deal with you." And I think they charged me $25,000 for it at the time. And believe it or not, I'm still paying that off 17 years later. Every quarter I send them a check for $500 just to pay that off.
Wow.
That's a cool story. I mean, that's one of the things that really stood out to me during the tour. So, a long legacy and history there. That's a unique thing to have as part of your operation. So, I'm a big fan of your bourbon. I know you guys have a variety which I want to talk about here in a little bit. But tell people, what is it about Garrison Brothers and Texas-made bourbon that makes it so unique in regards to the heat, how it's processed, the angel share, and all those sorts of things, if you could.
Sure. The secret to making good bourbon is that you want the liquid to flow into the wood barrel that it's aging in, and then you want it to flow out, in, out, in, out. You want that to happen over and over and over again. in Kentucky, I did a little research, and I realized that about 7 months out of the year in Kentucky, the temperature of the liquid is going to be below 70 degrees because that's Kentucky's average. That's the temperature in Kentucky. So what that means is that for 5 years out of the year, 5 months out of the year, they're aging just fine, and the bourbon's going in and out of the wood. But for 7 months, it's not going in and out of the wood at all. So it's not extracting the sugars from the chemicals that make up the sap in the white American oak barrel. So I realized in Texas, I've got 12 months of aging that can happen. Even in December, we have days that are well over 80 degrees, 90 degrees. In the summer, it's 115 degrees. So what that causes, it causes the bourbon that's aging in the barrel to expand. Any liquid, when you get it hot, expands, and it forces its way into the wood. And then when it gets colder, it comes back out of the wood, and it brings all the sap with it. So that's what makes good bourbon whiskey.
Got it. And I'm sure right off the bat you guys had no problems with the barrels you were using or the process or
Yeah, well, dumbass Dan decided to fill all his first 16 barrels 100% full. So I wasn't leaving any headspace in the top of the barrel. And what that meant was as soon as the bourbon expanded, it would crack the staves that made up the barrel, and the barrels would explode. So I lost my first 16 barrels to the heat.
How did that conversation go with your wife?
We didn't understand the science back then. I understand it much better today, but we didn't understand the science of swelling liquids as much. So I did a little more research on it, and I contacted one of my top suppliers of barrels, the folks that I really wanted to work with. I think it's a group called the Barrel Mill out of Minnesota. And I said, how can I fix this? And they said, well, only fill it to 90% capacity. Duh. And secondly, we can also make some barrels for you out of thicker staves, thicker pieces of wood. So that should support, it should keep them from blowing up.
Folks, we're here with Garrison Brothers Distillery founder Dan Garrison, talking all things bourbon. And Dan, if you would familiarize our audience with what actually is the angel share.
Angel share is the evaporation that you lose. Wood barrels are they breathe, meaning that you can. There's pores in the wood, and so the air comes in and out, comes in and out, comes in and out while the barrel's aging. And so the angel share is that loss of alcohol from the barrel during the evaporation process. You don't get to drink that until you get to heaven.
Got it. All right, we're here with Dan Garrison. We're going to take a quick break on Honey Matters on KPRC 950. Join us on the other side.
I love you, Red Solo Cup. I've got a good woman at home who thinks I do no wrong, but sometimes, Lord, she just ain't always around, and you know that's when I fall. Now I can't help myself at all, and I get
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Hunting Matters on KPRC 950 AM. I'm your host, Joe Bitar.
I am Ramon Robles.
And you're knocking it out of the park with music in line with our theme today.
I have an agenda, and I don't think Dan can hear me. So when I tell you that I'm playing for a bottle of the Laguna Madre, I just want you to know that I'm trying to butter him up a little bit before the big ask.
Oh, folks, today joining Ramon and I on Honey Matters is Dan Garrison. Dan is the founder of the Garrison Brothers Distillery. Go to garrisonbrothers.com, or BROS, should I say. It's garrisonbros.com, and learn more about him. Good morning, Dan. Thanks so much for joining us.
Joe and Ramon, thanks for having me on. And I can't believe you just played Hank Williams' Whiskey Bend. That is going to be the title of my memoir when I ever get around to writing it.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
I figured that. I've done a lot of research on you.
So, Ramon, you were talking about the Laguna Madre, and Dan, I know you guys offer like 8 or 9 different variations of Texas straight bourbon whiskey: small batch, single barrel, Cowboy, Balmeria, Laguna Madre, Honeydew, I think High Rye, Estacado, and Boot Flask. And I hope I didn't miss any there, but I'm just curious, how do you guys come up with your different variations or your next batch, named batch, and how often does that happen? How often are you inspired to do that?
Sure. Bourbon whiskey making takes time. If you want to develop a new product, if you want to research it and see how it's going to turn out, you're looking at basically a 10-year timeline before you can actually release it to the world. Because first you got to try it, and that means you got to age something in a barrel for minimum of 4 to 5 years for it to take on the quality level that we aspire to. And then if you decide you want to age it in a different type of barrel or finish it in another type of barrel, that's another 4 years. So you're looking at an 8-year timeline before you can actually start making whatever you're going to develop. We have two goals with our bourbon portfolio. One, growth. We want to sell more bourbon every single year, and today we're selling in 37 states and 6 foreign countries. So the growth brands for us are Garrison Brothers Small Batch Bourbon Whiskey, which is the black wax bottle; Garrison Brothers Single Barrel Whiskey, which has the silver wax on the bottle; Garrison Brothers Honeydew Bourbon, which is my wife's bourbon, and that's a great story of itself. And then finally, we have the Cowboy Bourbon. Those are our 4 growth brands. Beyond that, we do occasional things that keep us interesting to bourbon consumers, such as Estacado, or we're actually talking about doing a real fun project that I'm pretty excited about, and my master distiller is too. We're going to buy a whole bunch of champagne barrels. That there are a lot of wine companies or champagne companies that age their champagne in barrels, and we thought it would be so fun to make a bourbon that's a real kind of a light bourbon, maybe an 80 proof bourbon, age it in champagne barrels so it has this little sweetness to it from the residual champagne, and then we would pump some CO2 in it to carbonate it, so that when you open the bourbon bottle, it would actually carbonated bourbon.
What?
Which is how I like to drink my bourbon. So I think that's kind of a fun project, and I think they'll see that eventually down the road from us.
2 things. I'm still on that idea. I'm going to sell that to Willy Wonka's competitor down the road.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot.
I'm just kidding.
Never mind. No more secrets.
No, I was going to ask you about this Cowboy. You brought it up. I'm glad you did. 3 things when I look at this product here. 1, is that even legal? 2, will drinking it make you go blind? And 3, it's 133.9 proof. Why not 134?
The Cowboy has a life of its own. We mix barrels that are 5 years old together, and whatever proof that comes out at, that becomes that year's release of Cowboy bourbon.
Okay.
We don't adulterate the proof, because Cowboy is untouched. It's uncut. There's no water added to it. It's unfiltered. It comes right out of the barrels and goes directly into the bottle at whatever proof it happens to be.
That is beautiful, and I see a lot of products doing that nowadays. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe that's just my perception of it. Is that a fad? Is that a thing now, where it's that uncut, unfiltered, high proof alcohol?
So bourbon collectors are this religious denomination that absolutely amazes me, and they're always looking for something new to try, and everybody has to collect everybody else. There are bourbon collectors out there that will sit in the parking lot of a liquor store waiting for the Republic National Distributing Company trucks to show up and offload cases and cases of bourbon, and they'll take video of what those cases are that are being unloaded from the truck, and then they'll go immediately inside the store and buy every single case of anything rare, such as a Bland's or a Bland's cask strength, for example, or Garrison Brothers Cowboy Bourbon. When I release my Cowboy, when I release my Balmorhea, it disappears within a week, because they all know it's coming, because I tell them it's coming. But the collectors are basically thieves, because there's a whole black market for bourbon as well. There's a couple of websites that you can go to, and you can find anything you want, but it's going to cost you $10,000 for a bottle.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stores that we frequent, you'll go in and pick up the Cowboy or some of these others. You say, "Hey, do you have this?" And they'll look at you and laugh in your face, and they'll go, "We have a waiting list, sir." And you actually will get on a waiting list. And if and when you ever get the phone call, that remains to be seen. But it's crazy. I
mean, as far as you know, if I were to go into a local liquor store, a big one here in Houston, and ask for the Cowboy, they would laugh at me? Because, I mean, is it? I'm ignorant to that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Dan, you can answer that better than me, but it's a tough tough get.
You might try the Specs downtown for sure. They buy a ton of our bourbon, and they're a great partner of ours.
Okay.
Total Wine and More is also a great partner. Twin Liquors is a great partner of ours, and they know what's going on. They know how this black market works. So what they often do is they'll hold back bottles in their warehouse, and they won't bring them out and put them on the shelf until around the holidays.
Okay. I mean, Does that affect you at all? Does that affect maybe you price it a little higher or you make more? I mean, is there anything you want to do to combat that?
No, we haven't changed our prices. We changed our prices 1 year, and that was back in 2013. And the Chinese government placed a huge order for American-grown corn, and that dramatically affected our price for our ingredients. So we took a $1 price hike in 2013, but we've never changed our prices on anything else since then.
Good for you.
Yeah, and you've obviously had a lot of challenges. I mean, I've read about some of your travails. I'm on your mailing list and on your email list, and you've had your issues with the Tax and Trade Bureau. I want to make sure the public knows: are you fighting any battles right now that the bourbon lovers in this that are our listeners can help you with?
Boy, absolutely, we could use some help. Our tax basis was reduced from $13.50 a proof gallon to $2.70 a proof gallon in 2017 because of lobbying that I did along with the American Craft Spirits Association and Discus at the Capitol. And all that did was make us competitive with wine and beer because they'd already had their tax basis reduced. And on December 31st, my tax basis goes back up to $13.50 a proof gallon. So it's a 400% increase on craft distilleries right in the middle of COVID, where 60% of craft distilleries in America have already shut down. But this is going to be a backbreaker for so many of my friends in this industry.
So what can I do?
The law is called the CBMTRA, Craft Beverage Modernization and Tax Adjustment. And if they can contact their legislators and ask them to vote in favor of passage before December 31st, that would be huge to us. Just contact the legislators. CBMTRA.
Okay.
Dan, do you guys have that information on your website as well?
We don't, but the American Craft Spirits Association does.
Got it. Okay. Good to know. I mean, anytime we can help with things. I think you were battling for a while. You were battling an issue with requiring oak barrels to be a specific size. Has that been resolved?
That has been resolved. The TTB listened to our input, and they decided to rescind that recommendation.
Good deal. And you guys do a lot as far as giving back to wild places and different causes. I mean, I remember when Harvey hit Houston, you guys sent out a notice that said, hey, we're pulling a batch, and if you want to buy a bottle of a bourbon that's going to be ready in 5, 7, 8 years, you can go ahead and do it now. We're going to give funds to I think it was first responders or something at that time. Can you kind of talk a little bit about Garrison Brothers giving back?
Sure. We firmly believe that good bourbon can change the world. Good bourbon creates lasting, enduring friendships between people. Good bourbon can increase your faith in mankind and also God. And good bourbon creates legendary stories. And the Hurricane Harvey was our first example of that. We partnered with Team Rubicon. We asked 18,000 people that were on our mailing list to make a contribution of $500 in order to get one 375 milliliter bottle of Hurricane Tough bourbon. We launched that the day after Hurricane Harvey hit. And then over the next 3 weeks, we raised $146,000 from good Texans who care about their neighbors. And that was cool. We were so proud of that. And we've done it again this year. We introduced Laguna Madre. If you gave a $1,000 donation, you got a bottle of Laguna Madre, and that was the only way to get it. And we raised $400,000 for furloughed restaurant employees, chefs, bartenders, servers. And we dished that out through the Texas Restaurant Association Relief Fund and Southern Smoke. And we also gave direct payments to 53 bartenders of $1,000.
That's cool. Yeah, Southern Smoke with our friend Chris Shepard here.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, man. We're going to take a quick break. We're with Dan Garrison of Garrison Brothers Distillery. Join us on the other side on Honey Matters on KPRC 950 AM.
She won't think it's funny, and I'll wind up all alone. Whiskey River, take my mind. Don't let her memory torture me. Whiskey River, don't run dry.
Good morning. Welcome back to Honey Matters on KPRC 950. I'm your host, Joe Vitar.
I am Ramon Robles, and I don't really appreciate Dan's attitude when he said donating to the Hurricane Relief Fund was the only way you were going to get Laguna Madre. Because that means, A, I'm not getting it, and B, I missed that boat 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go out to High, and I'm picking my bottle up, and I'm going to have Dan sign it. How you doing, Dan? Good. Thank you for joining us this morning.
I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, you signed a bottle for my for my Navy kid who is active duty in the U.S. Navy and just had their first baby here a while back. And it is carefully. I've actually got 2 bottles, one signed by you and another one that I bought the day of her birth, and it's wrapped and tucked in the back of my bar, awaiting a special day to drink it with him and his daughter, my granddaughter.
Very nice. I just got a bottle delivered to me from Freddie Johnson, who was one of the tour guides at Buffalo Trace Distillery, one of the most amazing people I've ever met and the most friendliest man I've ever known. And he sent me a bottle of Eagle Rare 17-year-old. It's got his signature on it.
Fantastic.
That one's on the top shelf of the bar. Nobody's ever touching that.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Do you mix that with Coke or Sprite?
Right.
Sorry.
He's going to reach through the microphone.
That's
and
an
punch
ignorant question.
right in the face.
I got to play the dumb sidekick here. I apologize, Dan.
Somebody's got to.
Yeah. So, Dan, before we took the break, we were talking a little bit about Garrison Brothers philanthropic efforts. Let's talk about, tell us what else you guys are involved with.
Well, in 2017, we formed a nonprofit public charity, 501c3 approved, called Good Bourbon for a Good Cause. And the board of directors is myself, my wife, my master distiller, my brother, and our finance director. And every single year we decide how much money we're going to raise by adding a tax on ourselves. For example, if you buy a bottle of Balmorhea, $5 of the purchase price goes to Balmorhea State Park and repairing Balmorhea State Park along the side with Texas Parks and Wildlife. We work very closely with them to make sure Balmorhea is taken care of. There's a little story behind that too, which is that Donis, when he first showed me, Donis is our master distiller, and he first showed me the double-aged, double-oaked Balmorhea bourbon, and it had this beautiful crimson darkness to it, and you could just see it kind of, there was light shining off of it, and it was just gorgeous. And it reminded me of a time when my wife and I were a little bit younger, and we may or may not have climbed over the fence to Balmorhea State Park and gone skinny dipping in the middle of the night. So that's how Balmorhea got its name.
That's cool, and I think that's awesome. You know, you're from Texas, you're making great product here in Texas, and you're giving back to Texas and causes really all over the U.S. and all over the world. So we talked about it earlier. I've done the tour there. I'm on the bottling party invite list whenever those start to happen again. So you guys do some fun stuff there at the distillery, and hopefully all those activities will resume soon. But tell us a little bit about the bottling events and the chicken dinners and some of the other fun stuff that you guys do there, and also all across. You guys do chef pairing dinners as well. So let's talk a little bit about that, the fun stuff.
Sure. Yeah, 2020 has been a really tough year for the fun stuff because we just can't bring groups together bigger than 10 people at this point in time. That's the governor's executive order that we're following. So we are doing tours, but it's only 10 people on each tour. We are doing volunteer bottling, and it's only 10 people a day. And if you want to get moved up on the volunteer bottling list, I know a guy who can help you with that.
Okay.
Let me know. And we'll make that happen. Volunteer bottling is one of the greatest things that I think we do, because everybody comes out. They're not paid. They come out, and we give them breakfast in the morning, we give them lunch in the afternoon, and we give them a shot of courage every half hour to keep them motivated. Wow. And they're all real nervous when they first get there. They don't know who. Oh, look at that guy over there. He's got tattoos all over. Oh my God, that guy has piercings in his ears and his nose and his eyes. And they're all, that guy looks like a lawyer. So everybody's all nervous about all these people that they're going to be working with. And by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're all best friends, and they're all dancing together while they're bottling. And they make dinner plans that night, and they come back next year as a group, and we get 10 more people or 25 more people that a year later that bottled together the first time. So it brings people together, and that's why we say that good bourbon can create enduring, lasting friendships. It really does, and I see it every day.
Right, and just so people know, if they're actually traveling in the hill, I know a lot of people go to the hill country, go to Fredericksburg during the Christmas period. Now, you guys don't do tours on Sundays and Mondays, correct?
Not right now. We're doing tours on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 10 o'clock, noon, 2 o'clock, and 4 o'clock.
Okay. People need to call ahead and get reservations for that.
Yeah. Go to our website, and it's real easy to sign up for a tour.
Okay.
We also do special events at the distillery. We do one called Winter Chicken Dinner, which happens the third weekend in June, simultaneously with the Stonewall Peach Parade and Rodeo. And if you've never been to the Stonewall Peach Parade and Rodeo, you're missing a slice of Americana that's just beautiful. I mean, all the guys are wearing their hats, and they're sporting their tight jeans, and got a can of Copenhagen in the back left-hand back pocket. and all the girls are wearing their Daisy Dukes and their caps, and they look just gorgeous. It's a great slice of Americana, and if you are not a fan of God, don't come. We pray for the cattle, we pray for the riders, we pray for everybody at that event. So it's a religious experience.
Yeah. So Dan, I'm just curious. You talk about that. Fredericksburg is famous for their peaches. Why have you guys not made a peach bourbon yet?
So actually, I did, and I didn't like it. It was called Peach Fuzz, and what it was going to be is just White Dog flavored with peach juice. And honestly, I could never get it to the only way I could get it to a point where I was happy with it was by adding a lot of additional sugar, and that's not what we're about. Yeah. We make bourbon whiskey, and we stick to what we do. So I've thought very heavily about that, and just have decided that I'm going to stick to bourbon.
That makes sense. Ramon and I have been perusing through your website, and we're both foodies, and we both like to cook. And you guys have some incredible recipes on the website that are bourbon-based. What's your favorite, Dan?
It's called a Dan's Way.
Of course.
It's about 4 ounces of bourbon whiskey and about 1 ounce of club soda in a giant 32-ounce Yeti, and I can sip on one of those all night long. I usually, when I'm on trips like I'm on right now, I'm drinking throughout the day. I'll start visiting liquor stores in the morning and sampling with the liquor store owner, and then in the afternoon I'll go to an on-premise account, a restaurant, a hotel, or a bar, and I'm drinking with the buyers there that might be buying my bourbon. So I drink so much during the day, I decided to just load it down with club soda so I can weaken it. And last thing I want to do is show up to an event and be sloppy drunk. That'd be embarrassing as hell.
Yeah. I aside from the drink menu there, I kind of mouthwater over the bourbon-based ham.
Oh, my.
The food stuff, yeah.
Well, we're about to open up our restaurant out at the distillery. We're about to reopen. We're under a new chef, a guy named Jack McDonald, and I'm so excited about his menu. I'm about to burst with joy. He's a great man. That's
cool. So, just curious, you do you hunt and fish? You ever get a chance to get away from there to do any hunting and fishing?
I used to. It used to be religious when my kids were in high school that we would go out on opening day of dove season. We have a field that we grow our own wheat in that we use in the bourbon. And needless to say, the dove just slammed this wheat field. And we'd bag our limit, in just 1 hour of shooting back in the day when I had time to go enjoy that with my kids. My kids go out still today, and they'll take a deer down each year, so we got venison in the freezer. I don't have time anymore. I'm on the road about 275 days out of the year. So when I get home, I just want to spend time with my wife and my family. I don't want to go off and sit in a deer blind and drink bourbon in the morning anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. So, Dan, we're about to have to wrap up here, folks. We've been talking to Dan Garrison with the Garrison Brothers, the founder of Garrison Brothers Distillery. You can learn about them at Garrison, BROS.com, GarrisonBrothers.com. Dan, just real quick on our way out, if you had a chance to sit around a campfire and talk to one person, alive or deceased, who would that be?
Wow, didn't expect that one coming. I think I'd probably go right now with Guy Clark or Winston Churchill.
Guy Clark and Winston Churchill.
Nice.
That would be an interesting conversation. Yeah. Over a nice tall cooler of cool chill cup of Garrison Brothers bourbon.
Yeah, I just read a great book called The Splendid and the Vile and it's Eric Larson, and it's all about Winston's last days during the Blitzkrieg. It was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I got to check that out. All right, folks, we're wrapping up here on Hunting Matters. We've been talking to Dan Garrison. Dan, thanks so much for being with us, and we are going to see you here next time on Hunting Matters on KPRC 950.